Today, I saw an article on Semaphore. I don't know, do you know what Semaphore is?
No.
Semaphore is a top tier publication, right? They're like a Bloomberg spinoff. They're very highly integrated, very high integrity with journalistic integrity and whatnot. And I mean, they're like the new Bloomberg. So all the cool kids read Semaphore, and not so cool kids, I guess, read Bloomberg. But and it's mainstream as hell. They don't talk about crypto. The only thing they talk about crypto is SBF and Do Kwons of the world. I mean, last 18 months has been nothing but negative over crypto, right? For the first time, they wrote an article that's positive about crypto, and it said a AI chip shortage has a unlikely winner blockchain. And by the way, Akash is leading it, and they went and talked to Akash's providers and users, and they did this beautiful interview with everybody talking about how AI is actually being saved by blockchain. The first article that's positive over crypto is written by Akash, right? So, if we sit and wait for the beautiful product to go mainstream to launch, I don't think we'll be able to get it. We were like, and those people that used were like, you should see the story. It's incredible. The one student at Columbia, and he was talking about like how hard it is for him to like go to Amazon, not even get any of the resources. And he goes to Akash and like, boom, he gets it. There's another story about somebody doing this training on Akash, and they're talking about how it's impossible to get these GPUs elsewhere, and you can come on Akash and get it. Another story about, and they interviewed Foundry, which is one of the biggest Bitcoin miners, right? Foundry mining. Foundry is one of the biggest providers on Akash as well. They interview providers, and Foundry is now looking at a third way of making money that's about staking and mining, which is DePIN. So, and this is exciting. This is like new things that are not possible before. And Akash is like leading that way of this new revolution. And this is the kind of stuff that, that we want to see.
I guess quickly just kind of introduce yourself.
My name is Greg Osuri. I'm the CEO founder for Overclock Labs, and I am one of the co-founders for Akash Network and a core contributor.
Can you explain really quickly what Akash is?
Akash is the world's first decentralized supercloud. So what that means is, cloud, as we know, is someone else's computer sitting in a gigantic data center somewhere. And there are lots and lots of these data centers, about 8.5 million of them right now. And lots of these data centers have lots of unused capacity. So what Akash does is it takes the capacity available in all these data centers and creates a super cloud that connects the private and public clouds. And it does that in a peer-to-peer manner, in a decentralized manner, so that there's no single person or single entity that controls this layer. And the benefits are significantly lower costs for the cloud and significantly better access to resources that are impossible to get today, like GPUs for AI. Happy to get that into later, and fully open. So you as a user and the provider has complete control over the system. And more importantly, it has a self-sovereign economy that is designed with a uni-focus in mind of keeping Akash Network decentralized and prosperous to its users. And being a decentralized system, Akash is owned by the people that use Akash, which makes it extremely powerful, unlike your traditional systems where a shareholder has nothing to do with using the system, right? So it is the world's first people's cloud, like we like to call it.
So is Akash simply just like AWS, but an Airbnb / Uber decentralized approach to it? Is that a good way to explain it?
Yes. You can say Akash is Airbnb for GPUs without the cleaning fee.
Perfect. Airbnb for GPUs. Well, to get into the GPU side of things, for me, that's the most exciting part, because there's projects in the crypto space that are tackling like decentralized storage, like cloud storage and different things like that. They're interesting. But I think what kind of differs Akash from those is things like Akash ML and what you guys are doing with specifically being able to rent out GPUs to people who need them. Because to me, that makes a lot of sense that there's all these GPUs that maybe aren't used 24/7 that, in a perfectly efficient world would be rented out or would be able to be used 24/7. And that's essentially what Akash enables is like, hey, we have all this untapped GPU. There's a massive GPU shortage in the world. What if we could connect the people who need it with the people who don't need it to make, GPU access more efficient? Can you explain a little bit more about Akash ML and what you guys are doing with that?
Sure. So Akash Network is a peer-to-peer protocol where anyone with resources can offer those resources in exchange for AKT tokens or cash from people that want these resources. Very simple system to understand, right? It's a two-sided marketplace, and it's very general purpose. That means you can pretty much do anything you do on Amazon on Akash. It has no limitations. It is very flexible. It is so general purpose that you can do anything and everything on Akash, but in order to do something really good, you need to still write software on top of it, right? So you still need to automate. So it gives you the primitives and gives you all the tools, but you still need to know how to use those tools effectively. And so Akash is great for people that know how to use Akash, and it's almost like the best analogy I could give is a race car, right? Like Akash is a race car. But unless you know how to drive a race car, it's not going to be that helpful and that useful. You certainly don't want a race car to buy groceries, right? So, but you'd certainly want a race car if you're in the arena, like you like to call it. But so, in order to make a Prius or something that's a lot more usable for certain use cases, we have to customize Akash Network, and we have to automate some of the workflows. And that's where Akash ML comes in. So Akash ML is a machine learning product. It's not a general purpose cloud. That means you cannot run your WordPress website on Akash ML. It's not meant for that. Although it'll be very, very, very expensive WordPress ML. Like you can still, I guess, take a race car to groceries, but you don't want to. But Akash ML is very optimized for machine learning workflows, machine learning developers, where a lot of times we discovered that, hey, when you take Akash as is and give it to machine learning folks, they find it extremely hard to use because a lot of them are not crypto. So for them to even just jump the ship of like, hey, we need AKT to tokens, they're like, well, where do you get these AKT tokens? Can you sell it to us? We're like, no, we can't sell it to you because we'll go to jail if you do. You have to go to a regulated exchange in order to even though I have AKT, I cannot just sell it to you legally. It's kind of messed up in this country. But anyway, so they have to go to Kraken, give your mother's passport, give like your entire history to even get a sign up, account there, and then wait for forever to get your tokens to even use Akash Network. So which is very hard to use, right? And then that's not anyway scalable in terms of user growth. So we looked at all these problems, said, well, what do you really want as a machine learning developer? And they come to us and say, look, can you take my credit card and just like give me the GPUs and forget GPUs. Can you take my credit card and just give me this machine learning model? I want to run Llama I want to fine tune it, and I want to pay X amount of dollars per hour, and this is my credit card. And by the way, I have authorization from a company and yada, yada, yada. So we listen to them and we're like, okay, we'll give you something that's super simple to use, put in your credit card, tell you what you want to run, and the system will take care of that. That's what Akash ML is. So where Akash Network is fully permissionless and fully decentralized and censorship resistant, and it doesn't, so rightfully so, hard to use because it's decentralized. Whereas Akash ML is super easy platform for machine learning developers to do machine learning applications and nothing else. You don't want to do anything else. But for anything else, you can go to Akash directly.
So Akash ML is basically just a better UX UI for Akash, making it really
for machine learning.
Yeah, specifically for machine learning. So like anyone that wants to, just tap into these GPUs for AI machine learning, they're going to go to Akash ML. They're going to put their credit card in, and that's like the front end that makes it super simple. But on the back end, that platform is still tapping into Akash, the decentralized network.
Yes, and that's where the power comes, right? People want to use Akash, but find it hard to use because they're not crypto native. You'll be surprised how many people don't want to deal with crypto, even though they personally believe in crypto. Like, I don't want to name people, but I had a co-founder of a top 20 token by market cap using Akash. I don't want to disclose who it is because then there's a lot of but even he has a new small team he's working on and something with machine learning and AI. And their team, even though he's like a very popular crypto person, his team doesn't want to use crypto. And they're not crypto people. They're like very seasoned machine learning folks. And we have scenarios like that. And we have even people like a lot of traditional companies, you go to them and be like, hey, install a browser plugin and put $10,000 in the browser plugin. They'll freak out because nobody deals with that much amount of cash in normal human, that's not crypto people, right? So it's very hard. And a lot of times just they have corporate credit cards, they have authorizations to spend on the cloud. They don't have authorization to go buy crypto from Kraken. So if you want to convert a user, just a user with a credit card, it is next to impossible in crypto. And you can talk about all this like onboarding, all this like credit card based, like Cato money and all this stuff. I mean, a lot of people will be pissed off if I say, but they're okay. They're not a silver bullet, to be honest with you. There's still KYC in them. They're still they're not as easy as using Stripe. It's just not there, So we need that Stripe level onboarding in crypto projects to really achieve, mainstream success. And that UX unless solved, it's going to be hard for crypto to see the light. That's the reality. And protocols like Akash and companies like Overclock, we are seeing this because we're in the arena, every day. We're talking to users, and our users are saying that it's hard to use, and we'll do whatever it takes for them to use. So that's what Akash ML is, and we've been very secretive about the project. I mean, kinda and kinda not. We've been talking about it openly a little bit, but not really showing what the product does. Product is amazing now. We have paying customers, real SaaS customers, we call them, using Akash ML. Again, Akash ML is SaaS. It's not decentralized, and it's not supposed to be decentralized. Just want to be very clear on it. The different products from Akash ML and Akash Network, but you need a SaaS product to take to the next level.
Can anyone build a front end like Akash ML on top of Akash?
Anyone, and there are actually companies doing it right now. In fact, after we started Akash ML, a few other companies will make announcements very soon. These companies are one company I'm really excited about is very fast growing machine learning front end. I mean, machine learning platform. And they are integrating Akash, I believe, in December. So we'll make some really good showcase in January timeframe. But they're one of the premium machine learning companies. They're not crypto at all. So they're building a front end Akash. Akash ML is also building a front end Akash. So I think there are a few people that are trying, and all of them have the same level, right? And that's the beauty of Akash, because Akash is a decentralized network. Even though Overclock built it, we have no control over who gets to build on top of it. The moment people see, you get A100s for $1, people go nuts, right? And the best part is we're going to come out with token incentives next year. So Akash is pre-incentive. There are no incentives.
When you say token incentives for what?
So you know how DePIN works, right? Tokenized incentives model, right? So
to get people to lend out their GPUs, lend out their storage, etc. Is that what you mean?
So on Filecoin, if you lend out your file storage, regardless of people that use your storage or not, you get tokens. In fact, you even get tokens for using Filecoin. It's heavily incentivized. Literally, if you go to Filecoin and store something using Filecoin Plus, you get money. You get Filecoin tokens. So no one is actually using. I mean, again, I get in trouble for saying things like this, but I think I haven't checked lately what Filecoin usage, but I remember some time ago, all the usage was incentive driven and not organic driven, in the sense you don't pay to use Filecoin, but Filecoin pays you to use it. That's extreme example of incentivization, but Helium, for example, is a better model, I think. Helium, for example, they got 300,000 nodes because they literally paid the node providers from the token protocol for coming online, right? It's a great way to bootstrap network. Yes, there is some, wastage that happens, but it's a great way to bootstrap networks. Filecoin did it, Helium did it, LivePeer did it. Every respectful, I guess, DePIN network use tokens as a bootstrapping mechanism. In fact, I wrote a paper in 2019 talking about this: how do you bootstrap a free market by borrowing from the future? That got a lot of notoriety in the academic circles. But I laid out a mechanism saying that, look, you can actually incentivize your users with tokens or your providers with tokens. And crypto is phenomenal at it. That's how we are able to get. Filecoin has about 2% of global storage or something crazy like that, right? And the utilization is like sub 0.5%. For comparison, and Akash, we did the opposite. Even though I actually was a great proponent of bootstrapping using tokens, looking at the demand side of DePIN networks, I came to a conclusion, maybe I was wrong, and maybe a lot of these DePINs are wrong, because you're over-incentivizing to a point, you're under-optimizing for demand. So that means the demand side is not good enough for people to use crypto. People are not using Filecoin versus people are using Amazon over Filecoin. Crypto has not, most crypto, especially DePINs, have not optimized for demand at all. And so you have this incredible imbalance with demand and supply. You usually have a lot more supply than demand. And we saw that Filecoin. Filecoin has sub 0.5% usage. I mean, these are, again, not latest stats. I haven't checked, but I'm fairly certain it's in a very, very low sub percentage utilization. Helium has a very low utilization. Now, pretty much every network out there has very, very low utilization. And we wanted to change that. And I was really thinking about how do you go about deploying this massive asset, right? This token incentives to accelerate growth. But if you don't nail demand side, we're going to lose. So that's why we waited for GPUs to come online. Akash launched 2 years ago, and we were very strict about not having incentives because we wanted to get a product market fit before incentives. We want to see real organic usage. People should come to Akash because they see a need for Akash, and they see the value in Akash, not because they have essentially pre-bought like supply, right? So we took a very diligent and thorough approach, and we stood our ground, even though we had a lot of pressure from investors and whatnot saying that we should go incentivize because that's the way to go big. And we knew that if we go big before we are capable to handle the load, we will fail for sure. So now Akash has probably a lot more than almost all the DePIN networks in terms of revenue, right? And we're doing that without any incentives. And our utilization on GPUs, for high-end GPUs like A100s, are about 95%. And overall GPU utilization is somewhere around 50% average, last 90-day average. And our CPU utilization is around 50% as well. Unheard of for crypto networks to have, unheard of for even traditional networks to have that level of utilization. So it's not how much supply you have, it's how much supply that's being utilized that matters. And that's where product market fit comes. And any healthy of the health of a marketplace is determined by the goods it's able to sell, the percentage of goods it's able to sell, right? Like if you're an Apple vendor, you go to a market, you want to sell all your apples and come back home empty. That's success, right? But at the same time, you also got to balance that if you don't have enough apples on the shelves, your customers are going to be pissed off, right? So it's always like a careful balance as to how much you need excess and how much you shouldn't. You always want the shelves to be full, but at the same time, the shelf should go away for the vendor to sell. So we're working on an incentive model where we have the opposite problem. We have more demand than supply. So now our incentives are going to be geared towards that optimization, not general purpose like Filecoin model. So once those incentives comes, we're designing them in a way that providers get paid regardless of utilization. Since we have high utilization, providers also get to keep whatever extra they make on the utilization. So that'll create an incentive for providers to bid lower on the prices. So that means you're going to find A100 is significantly lot cheaper on Akash than any other network, be it decentralized or centralized. And we are doing that through clever incentive mechanism. So I know a lot to talk here, but
what you're saying is, so say they have a GPU that they want to rent out. If they charge a lower price, what do you mean they get to keep the extra? Can you explain that?
yes. So right now on Akash, you have an A100 or a chip, right? You provide the chip and you wait for demand to come, because you only get paid if someone uses the chip. If no one is using the chip, you don't get paid. So fortunately, we have about 50% utilization. That means, you're utilized 50% of the time, which is still very profitable, right? It's not bad. If you own the chip, 50% of the time you're selling the chip. It's like having 50% rental, right? Think about it. In rental terms, it's not great in real estate terms, but for compute terms, it's great, especially for commodities. But higher end GPUs like A100s, we have 95%. So it's actually really good right now to be on Akash with A100s, right? But A100s are also in high demand everywhere. So yeah, you can do the math. We want, but they're not. There are lots of A100s in the world, and we want all those A100s to be on Akash. And a big question people ask is like, hey, what's my return going to be if I put my A100 on Akash? If we can guarantee some degree of return, I think it'll be beneficial for the Akash network and for the provider, because now they have less risk, because they can go anywhere. I mean, I guess there are not too many places to go, but they can, they can essentially.
It's like Airbnb and Vrbo, like you could technically list your property wherever wherever there's demand for it. It's basically where.
But Akash is only functioning Airbnb for GPU right now, so it's not really any other marketplace. But even for people, for people to get convinced that it's worth their while, I think having some guarantee is important. So we're going to take a pool model in the sense like, how LP pools work, right? Mm-hmm. For liquidity. So compute is technically liquidity here in Akash, because compute is the commodity that's being traded. So we're going to do liquidity pools where there's certain configuration pools you can participate. A configuration pool for A100s, pool for H100s, for 4090s, whatever. And there's fixed amount of tokens that gets distributed in that pool every block, right? And to the participants. So less participants, more tokens, more participants, less tokens. The network wants more participants. So if you're someone that came in with less, in the initial days when there's less participants, you can just pure degen play for you, right? You make a lot of tokens, find you happy. The moment people realize that people are making money, more supply comes. So in a way, network wins out. More supply means more revenue, because our utilization of members is very high, right? More revenue means better token appreciation, because token captures the revenue, right? It's a real usage. So, but a kicker is you as a provider. So providers set the price here, by the way, Akash. It's a provider set, the user requests and provider sets the price, right? So Akash doesn't control the price at all. So in this case, since anything you make on top of the rewards is free, you get to keep it. You're incentivized as a provider to offer lower prices.
Got it.
You get it?
Yeah.
So that way, so there are two providers competing, right, for the job. You get your free token incentives, great. But how about if you get a kicker on top of that? Whatever you're selling your compute for, you get to keep that profits like you normally do. So now, instead of say your competitor, bids $1 and you bid, 75 cents, you're going to win the bid, right? It's lower. So you got to keep that extra 75 cents, and your competitor is not going to get that dollar on top of what you're making from the pool.
Got it. Okay. So just to make sure that I'm clear, if there's, 100 chips or whatever, they all want to get utilized. You're offering the cheap, you're saying, hey, I'll rent mine out for, I don't know what the fees are, but I'll rent mine out for a cent or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Dollar.
Somebody else I'll rent mine out for $2. You end up winning. So the incentives are going to go to you, and the other guy's getting no incentives.
He's getting the token incentives from the LP pool, but that's all they're getting.
Got it. He's only getting the token incentive. Oh, okay. So you're saying that the reason that they're motivated to lower the price is because they're also getting the token incentive so they can lower the price. And so it's like, why not earn a little bit plus I'm already getting token incentives. So, like, who cares? I'm profitable. Is that kind of the idea?
Correct.
Okay.
The token incentives are going to guarantee profits or like give you profits at least, right? Not guarantee, but it's going to be shared. So you're already incentivized to put it on Akash. But now if you get anything extra on top of that, you keep, or else it's just going to be unused, right?
You mentioned that the token captures revenue. How does the token capture revenue? I wasn't not familiar with that.
Yeah. There's a small percentage of fee that goes back to the token security. Because Akash is a proof of stake system.
Can you explain how that works?
So Akash is a proof of stake system, right? It's secured by validators, which is again secured by delegators, delegating the tokens to validators. Each token has one vote. That's how the blockchain works, right? It's a proof of stake. But it's only the security of the system is proportional to the economic activity of the system. That means if the economic activity is greater than the value, the market cap of Akash, essentially, then it's susceptible to attack. Because a bad actor could be like, oh, it's cheaper to attack. I could buy all the tokens and attack the system. So in order for us to prevent it, the token has to go in conjunction with the economic activity on the system. And the best way to do that is to capture some of the hosting fees and incentivize stakers. So stakers can now stake for those token fees, for those hosting fees.
So when you say hosting fees, that's like what is the hosting fee?
So a hosting fee is what the tenant is the one that consumes GPUs, pays the provider. So a tenant pays the provider, say $100 per every hour for using their compute. A percentage, let's say 20%, goes back to the Akash network and gets distributed to all the people that are staking on the Akash network as an incentive.
Got it. Okay. So that where validator rewards come from? Is just from that? Is there any emissions as well, just that like of newly printed tokens?
Yes, Akash is a fixed cap, so 389 million. Akash works similar to Bitcoin in terms of like token economics. Fixed cap, 389 million. And those, they were like 100 million in the initial genesis. So the 289 million gets minted every block for the next 80 years or something. So those are giving economic security right now. And the idea is, and now we have, take fees, right? Take income from the token hosting. That'll eventually replace the tokens that are emitted through the inflation cap. But that, since it's a fixed cap, it goes down every block, in fact. So in halves, I don't remember. I think halves every 2.5 years.
Okay. So right now there's emission. It's a hard cap. But just like Bitcoin's a hard cap at 21 million, Bitcoin's still paying out emissions to miners. In the same way, Akash is paying out emissions to validators. And in the same way, it's a hard cap with the eventual goal of the taker fees should replace those emissions. Like there should be enough revenue on the network that people are going to want to validate for the network. Still. Okay.
So in the initial phase, when there's less revenue, obviously there's going to be incentives from emissions that are secure in the network, because without that, there is no network. And you need the network to get the revenue. And as the revenue, gains, like we grew like 250% monthly over the last 90 days, right? As it keeps growing and growing, a percentage of that goes to secure the network. And so now we have a very aligned, mechanism or aligned set of values between the stakers and the users. And usually a lot of the stakers are users of Akash, right? Most of them are, right? So, and most of the providers are stake tokens. So it's very aligned with everybody in the system. It's owned by the people.
So that means like right now, today, like say Akash is like, obviously it's unrealistic, but say like next month, you're doing a $1 billion in revenue. That would mean that like a portion of that's getting paid out to the validators. Like today, that would be happening today.
Stakers, validators are, yeah, through the stakers, yeah.
Okay, so that would push up the APY for the stakers. It'd be like, I don't know, what is it right now? It's like 10%, or is that
10%?
Yeah. So that would go up to like, who knows, 15, 20% or whatever. Got it. Okay, cool. I didn't know that. What is currently your biggest moneymaker?
GPUs, hands down.
GPUs.
I mean, to give you an idea, GPUs launched 90 days ago, right? And they now account for about 36% of all the revenue that has been ever made in the last 2.5 years.
Do you think that is the UI UX improvement? Like, because I feel you were talking about that earlier, and I feel like in all of crypto, that is a huge issue because Web 2 has gotten to the point where I can go pay for a drink at a cafe with my face, right? Like crypto is still working its way through, how to make it better and abstract and kind of catch up on those things. And so you made that improvement on the UI UX, and then, your actual usage and revenue just happens to skyrocket. Do you think those two things, happen to be correlated?
Definitely correlation, but not the only reason, right? It's GPUs, really. That's really what put us in terms of this hyper growth path over the last 90 days. And we are doing some amount of optimization, but that's not the major contributor yet. I mean, it will be. I mean, the hope is Akash ML will do a lot of business. And again, Akash ML is a product on top of Akash, right? It's built by Overclock Labs, and Overclock Labs is the company, and we are for profit, right? We're no virtue signaling bullshit here. We're here to make money as a company, right? Our shareholders have value, but we're making money by solving for problems that cannot be solved in a decentralized manner. Like sending an email, for example, you cannot do that on a protocol. Selling credit cards for a man, you can't do that on a protocol. You cannot do a lot of things on a protocol that you have to do in the Web 2 in the traditional world. And Akash ML will charge a premium, right? Like we charge some extra on top of what you pay. We also give like volatility protection and all that, so you don't have to deal with AKT token volatility. There's a lot of things from a usability standpoint that are not very attractive for a non-crypto person. So we handle all the crypto things for the non-crypto guy, and we charge you for it. So we think that is going to be the primary way, because we can put a Google ad on it and we can actually convert a user, and we can measure at least, okay, this is where we messed up, this is where we need to optimize, and we can make money in our sleep, right? So that's really what we are investing in terms of user experience. And we're not the only one. There are other companies doing it too. So we are in competing with other ecosystem projects in that sense, right? That right now is a very small percentage of revenue contribution. We think we want to get it to 80% of revenue contribution. But who knows the way things are going. I think that's an unrealistic target. But UX improvements actually it's funny enough, because I had this thesis, like, is UX UI a big driver for growth, or is it something we say that because Steve Jobs basically said it, right? Or is it really, like, the question I ask is like, okay, some of the most used products in my life have horrible experience, horrible UI. Like, I use a browser, I use a code editor called Vim. I don't know if you know what that is, but Vim is this terminal editor. I've been using this for 14 years. It is probably one of the hardest editors you'll ever use. I mean, you can't use a mouse. It's like it operates only on keyboard, and it's so complicated. Even to getting out of Vim took me like 30 minutes to figure out how to leave Vim. It's such a hard tool to learn. But once I learned it, it's so powerful, and I don't want to ever use anything else, right? And I'm a film shooter. I use a film camera, right? Film cameras are I have this one here. Film cameras are very hard, old to use. And I have a camera that was built in 1965. But it's so hard to use compared to like my iPhone camera. I still use it. I still prefer that over my iPhone camera, regardless of how hard it is used, because I see value in it. So my thesis is, I call this cognitive coefficiency. My thesis is, if the value perceived is greater than the cognitive load you need to incur, you're going to use the product. If you don't, if it's the opposite, you don't. So it really comes down to the value. So for us with GPUs, when people go to Amazon and try to get a GPU, when you cannot get a GPU on Amazon, you come to Akash and you get the same GPU on Akash for significantly actually lower too. So the value that you get out of using Akash is so much higher that you're going to go through the pain of actually using crypto. Now, that is also limiting. That's why you don't see too many Vim users versus VS Code users, right? That's why you don't see too many film photographers versus iPhone photographers, right? Sure, there is definitely like if you want to scale massively, you have to make the product super simple to use. But to get to product market fit, you don't need the product to use. And crypto is still in the product market fit arena, not in mass transition arena. So my thesis is, look, it's not that simple. It's not like, oh, you got to build a beautifully working product in order to get users and validate your PMF. I think that's horrible. I think you got to build value first and really showcase and be so valuable that they cannot ignore you, kind of thing. And then build a better product on top of it that gives you scalability that can get to your next 100, 200 million users.
That's one of my favorite quotes. Be so good they can't ignore you. It's just one of my favorites.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly. I mean, today I saw an article on Semaphore. I don't know. Do you know what Semaphore is?
No.
Semaphore is a top tier publication, right? They're like a Bloomberg spinoff. They're very highly integrated, very high integrity with journalistic integrity and whatnot. And I mean, they're like the new Bloomberg. So all the cool kids read Semaphore, and not so cool kids, I guess, read Bloomberg. But and it's mainstream as hell. They don't talk about crypto. The only thing they talk about crypto is SBF and Do Kwons of the world. I mean, last 18 months has been nothing but negative over crypto, right? For the first time, they wrote an article that's positive about crypto, and it said a AI chip shortage has a unlikely winner blockchain. And by the way, Akash is leading it. And they went and talked to Akash's providers and users, and they did this beautiful interview with everybody talking about how AI is actually being saved by blockchain. First article that's positive over crypto is written by Akash, right? So, if we sit and wait for the beautiful product to go mainstream to launch, I don't think we'll be able to get it. We were like, and those people that used were like, you should see the story. It's incredible. The one student at Columbia, and he was talking about like how hard it is for him to like go to Amazon, not even get any of the resources. And he goes to Akash and like, boom, he gets it. There's another story about somebody doing this training on Akash, and they're talking about how it's impossible to get these GPUs elsewhere, and you can come on Akash and get it. Another story about, and they interviewed Foundry, which is one of the biggest Bitcoin miners, right? Foundry mining. Foundry is one of the biggest providers on Akash as well. They interview providers, and Foundry is now looking at a third way of making money that's above staking and mining, which is DePIN. So, and this is exciting. This is like new things that are not possible before. And Akash is like leading that way of this new revolution. And this is the kind of stuff that, that we want to see, right? We want positive stories about Akash. And I'm talking to a lot of press, mainstream press, not crypto press. I don't want to name who it is till the articles come out, but I was recently in Washington Post, Akash, that is, Semaphore, we were in Forbes recently. We're in a lot of like mainstream like stuff, non-crypto stuff, which is awesome. Not in CoinDesk. And I guess like we had some crypto coverage like Block and whatnot, but no CoinDesk or no Cointelegraph, which tells you a lot about where we are in our journey.
That's really interesting about the Bitcoin miners. I've never thought about it, but now that you're saying that, it totally makes sense that there would be businesses kind of alongside what Bitcoin miners do, where they just buy up a bunch of GPUs. They don't know how to do machine learning. They don't know how to do anything, regarding AI. They just want to host them all and then provide through services like you and rent those out as like a business. Like at some point, that's got to become a good enough incentive that somebody's going to go do that. I was going to ask you though, currently, like who are your biggest customers actually using the GPUs? Like, is it, AI companies? Is it machine learning? Like who are the people that are actually using these things?
Machine learning, right? Machine learning companies. I don't want to disclose names before I seek someone's permission, but probably like ask their permission. I mean, Semaphore disclose a few names, right? So Thumper is a big one. Thumper is doing machine learning. They're doing a foundation model training completely on Akash, right? There are a bunch of people that talked publicly. There's a medical imaging company that's doing like image analysis. There is a gaming company now. They're doing in-game character design. It turns out Stable Diffusion is an amazing way to do it. There's a very good social media company. I don't want to say who it is because we're going to make this massive announcement who it is, but I'll tell you what. They have 3,000. They're a startup, very well funded. They have 3,000 DAUs now in this beautiful social media app, and they're and they had like 10 DAUs like 45 days ago, something like, and they're growing really fast to a point. People on Twitter, people I follow, the artists are starting to share who they are, and I think that one user is going to be so important to Akash because they're scaling really quickly on the user side, and as they scale, we scale, right? Because the more users they get, the more compute they need. So we're scaling really well with them. So all you need is like 5 or 6 of these like incredible, hyper successful apps. Like Netflix was the biggest turning point for AWS, right? Before Netflix, AWS was just a normal like cloud provider, but Netflix really showed that you can scale and how AWS is integral to their scaling story. And we're kind of having a similar story with Akash. We have this company that's scaling really quickly. I think that's doing a bunch of like compute. We have a lot of like very, very wide net of folks, but we're seeing a common pattern with Stable Diffusion as the main application that people are building on top of, around Stable Diffusion, since ControlNet and all the good stuff around it. But diffusion models is what Akash is being primarily used for.
Are these people like using it, for one experiment? Are they using it for like a week? Are there some users who are like, hey, this is what we use. Like we're using this long term.
So most of them are using us as, one, like for Thumper, obviously we're the only one they're using. They're not using anything else. And I assume they're going to keep using. Some of them are right now on Amazon and paying extremely high prices for low-end chips because Amazon doesn't have the high-end chips, and are using Akash as complementary to their Amazon. So the moment we have high-end chips available, they kind of use it on Akash. So the idea is they're going to transition slowly as we get more supply on Akash. Remember, we have a supply problem, not a demand problem. So what we're waiting for is more supply. Now, as the supply keeps, with incentives and all that, supply increases, we can see these companies completely transitioning. So I don't think we'll ever be in like exclusive on Akash. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to have, but I think realistically, it's going to be a lot of complementary with existing clouds because, let's be honest with us, right? Amazon is actually good. Like it's very capable. Like a lot of people use Amazon, and for someone to leave a big cloud in Amazon completely and to use Akash, you need to work a little harder on Akash, right? So we don't want people to use Akash because they have to. We want people to use Akash because they want to, right? They're obviously in need for it. So right now, people are heavily on Amazon quite a lot and using some capacity on Akash, and that's slowly gaining. I think our success will be like, how much are you using Amazon versus how much you're using Akash? And
how does Akash compare, or Akash ML, for example? How does it compare in terms of pricing to something like AWS?
Yeah, so it's a little complicated. It's a little nuanced, right? Because it's not commodity. It's different. Every chip is different. Every chip has different demand profile, right? So for H100s, which is very, very high demand, Amazon charges about $12 an hour, and Akash charges about $2 an hour. So that's like literally the cost difference, right? For H100. For A100, Amazon, I haven't checked A100. I don't know if Amazon has any, but Akash charges about $1.60, $1.20. And the competition we saw, at least from others we could see from like Replicate and whatnot, they charge about $6.80 or something. So it's very expensive. 3 times or 4 times.
And that scales, like the more supply you guys end up having, like that will inevitably push down prices.
Well, that's the whole point of the incentives I was talking about, right? So we want more supply we have, the lower the price, right? And we want to further incentivize to even lower the price. So right now there are no incentives, so the price is whatever market essentially determines, and that's beautiful because price discovery has to be market driven, cannot be like incentivized.
Yeah, that's a way better way to do it because most people start out with heavy incentives and they try to pull it back and they watch their entire thing crumble. So you guys are starting from a point of like strength versus a point of, like weakness. I was going to ask for those incentives. Where are those coming from? Are those
token rewards? So we have about 100+ million in tokens that are not minted. That was reserved specifically for this.
For incentives.
For the incentives. And that's why we have very low APR because of that, right? In fact, our inflation is 8%. Our token rewards are 12% because it's distributed to stakers and we have like 63% stake or whatnot. So It's very, very low drip.
Got it. And just kind of to switch subjects a little bit, the Akash token, what is that currently used for? Like, what are the purposes or uses of the Akash token? You talked a little bit about how it does capture some of the fees on the network. What else does it do?
Well, it's a primary way to pay for compute. I mean, you need a Akash token. Without that, you cannot get GPU. So people, like it or not, you have to go buy a Akash token. We have so many people that hate buying tokens from the network, but it is what it is from exchange.
So it's kind of like on Ethereum, the only way that you can get block space is you got to pay for gas using ETH. And on Akash, the only way you get access to compute is you got to pay for it using Akash or AKT tokens.
AKT. There is a multi-currency support we introduced recently using USDC, but you have 20% fee extra if you want to use USDC. So yeah, you can use USDC, but then you need the fee that gets converted to Akash. So anyway, internally, Akash is the only native token. And Akash is used to secure the network, right? Because it's a proof of stake token. Unlike proof of work, where you have the value of the token that secures the network, right? Without the token, there is no network. So in order for incentives to stakers to stake the token, a percentage of the fees goes to stakers. So that's the relation, right? And third is the governance token. So Akash has a very, very active governance. Akash is built by about 480 contributors in a fully open manner. Every aspect of Akash is open, including product development. There is no, Overclock doesn't have secret product development meetings at all. It's all in the public, recorded, published on chain. There are different groups that come together every now and then, and all their meetings are public. And they set the roadmap, and they, say what features need to make into the bigger roadmap and what gets funding. That funding again comes from on-chain. There's a public goods fund that pays in Akash tokens. So it's completely run or like governed by the public. I mean, we're very, very healthy, governance. We're about 280 proposals, I think, so far in Akash. It's very, very public, right? So Overclock Labs, the company that created Akash, can disappear today, and Akash will run by itself really well. And we wanted to keep it that way. So Akash is central to Akash economy. Without that, there's no governance, there's no improvement, right? We ship quite a lot. We shipped about, in the last 90 days, we did about 3 upgrades, right? And all that is governance or based, right? So people need to go and like vote and like approve and like upgrade the systems. Without AKT, there is no governance. So AKT is so integral to the Akash economy and the Akash like network in general, and the consensus and security and payments. And AKT is actually a really good payment token. I mean, it's optimized for cloud payments. It's not optimized for anything else. So it's very good for cloud payments and nothing else. You can use Akash to buy coffee, but I would recommend not doing that.
I actually didn't realize how much of like how decentralized you guys were. There's a lot of crypto projects that kind of range, right? You can't always tell. Like sometimes it's like, they're decentralized, but they really aren't. And I kind of have this thesis that like the more something is genuinely decentralized, the more value it's actually able to accrue to itself. Think of like Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is like, we don't even know who made it. Like that's how decentralized it is. And so because of that, it's like accrued so much value when really at its base, like core, like there's a lot of other protocols that maybe provide more advanced things. But the thing that Bitcoin does the best is it's truly decentralized. And then same thing with Ethereum, you have this level of decentralization that maybe something like, some of these newer startup chains that maybe they're really fast and, it's like Sui or, whatever. They can't quite match the value that ETH is able to provide because it's built genuine decentralization. So thinking of something like Akash, like as a public good, that is pretty cool because, people that want to build other decentralized public goods that need compute, they are going to look to something like you because they know that, Overclock Labs isn't going to be able to pull the switch on that. and they can genuinely build something open and permissionless, which I think is pretty amazing.
Oh, that's a big appeal for like these clients that are building on top of Akash. They know for sure that overclock is not gonna, even though we compete with them in certain areas with Akash ML and whatnot, we're not going to be able to pull the switch. And best part is like, it's not even Overclock Labs that's determining what features they need to build. I mean, if this company is building on top of Akash want a feature, they can come to the steering committee meetings or the product roadmap meetings or so many meetings that happen. If you go to our GitHub, you'll see the schedule for all these meetings and propose something, and that proposal is debated in public with merit. So if I'm participating, if I take biases with Overclock, it's very visible there, right? So it's very hard for me as a contributor to speak to my biases, when it comes to like what feature should go. So as long as the merit, as long as people agree that this is the direction you need to go, Akash will function, right? So, and that's a strong like proposition that builders on top of Akash get, and they don't get that with Amazon or Google or any of them. And Amazon can pull your plug, and they've done that quite a lot. We see like the moment you use someone's platform, the moment you get successful, that platform want to build a feature themselves, right, internally. Like look at Twitter, right? Twitter kills so many companies that relied on the APIs that indie devs or developers have zero trust, right? So, a truly open system needs to have truly open governance. If the governance is closed, it's not open source. Like the way I look at decentralization is not it's a spectrum, but also the spectrum is like an onion. The more layers you peel, the more you discover how centralized something is. And a lot of times it comes down to who's building, who's actually like building and making upgrades to the chain. If that layer is not decentralized, you're not decentralized, right? You can have your consensus and all the other stuff decentralized, but when it comes to who's actually determining what features need to go, because a lot of these chains are not yet in the potential, right? Our goal is mainstream, like global adoption, and we're not going to get there with the chain that's just dead, right? In terms of development, you need continuous development, and you need that development not to stop. And a big attack vector today is a company, a corporation. Like, it could be state, could be non-state actors, it could be malicious actors, it could be anybody that could threaten a company. Like we saw what happened with OpenAI. A dumb board was able to fire the CEO.
Yeah.
And it's just an example as to what could happen even though the big one, big companies like OpenAI, right? Like, so that's why like decentralizing roadmap and decentralizing product development is extremely critical for decentralization of system. And we've invested quite a lot, even though it takes longer to build that way because your coordination cost is significantly higher when you build in a public versus building something in a closed setting, because you can move fast with a closed software, but you can move far with an open software, with an open mindset, right? So we chose to move far, not move fast, although we're moving fairly fast. Even with this setting.
To me, okay, so like when I think about it and the more like decentralized and open it gets, I think of like something like an on-chain AI, right? Like so somebody builds some sort of as AI continues to progress, we get some sort of AGI, right? And then you have an on-chain AGI. What's that thing going to use? It's going to use something like Akash, right? Like that's how it's going to get its compute. And it's going to be the ones, putting in governance proposals for like expanded compute and et cetera for like different features it's trying to build within itself or whatever. Like, I feel like we get to this crazy dystopian future where like, governance for even something like Akash is done by various AIs who are competing for resources.
Yeah, by agents. It's something I think about a lot. It's a funny story because Akash means in Sanskrit, the sky, right? That's where sky is where the clouds are formed. So that's where the name came from. Akash is the sky. Akash also, Akash Network, if you shorten it, AkashNet, if you shorten that, translate that in English, it's Skynet. Right? That was not by design. It was just so happened. And guess what? When the agents want permissionless, when they want compute, they're going to come to a permissionless and censorship resistant layer that is going to prevent anyone from taking away the compute. So if you want and they're not going to use credit cards because credit card needs permission, someone's authorization from a bank to even use it. So they want to use something like a crypto and something that's permissionless and there's something that's non-custodial. They want to do something open source because they understand the source code better. Because closed source, bots don't understand the closed source, right? Because they don't have access to it. So Akash is going to be, we're already kind of starting to see bots using Akash. It's crazy with all these agents kind of on Akash right now. There's no way to tell who's an agent, who's not, because there's no KYC on Akash, right? So I thought about it. Actually, I think in a weird way, I can see a value for WorldCoin in Akash here because proof of personhood, I think, is going to be a interesting areas to like explore further. But so far, permissionless compute is very much desired by agents. And people are actually building agents on top of Akash to run permissionless compute.
I bet. It's early days.
Self-training. I don't think it's, by the time like AI goes on chain, it's going to take a long time, but I think AI will use something like Akash is not fully on chain, it's off-chain computation, right? It's on-chain coordination, off-chain computation. On-chain computation is very expensive in terms of overhead. I don't know whether you can do any decent neural networks on chain with low latency. Even for inference or fine tuning, it's just mathematically, it's not physics limits
but
that right now.
But when something
right?
like Akash, like because it is decentralized, like they're using chips all over the world, but isn't it kind of the equivalent of the same thing?
Not really, because on-chain computation has verification overhead, and the latency it brings with the verification overhead is so high, it becomes impossible for a neural network to function efficiently. So getting chips is one thing, but doing actual inference on chain is a whole nother thing, right? It's not technically possible right now. There's a lot of research happening, a lot of ZKML stuff happening. There's a lot of like heterogeneous GPU that can be utilized over high latency networks are happening. I mean, this company called Jensen, which is doing interesting stuff there. We still have to see what they have going on. A lot of promising work, but if you ask me, I think it's going to take a while by the time you can see something practical in this area. And that's not, but open source AI is doing well, and open source AI is not on-chain AI, right? So Akash is great for open source AI. We're at least like 5 to 6 years away from on-chain AI, I think.
I guess I'm thinking more of like a modular thing, like maybe pieces of like contribution to the AI or like development, participation, and kind of the way that people organize around building the AI. Maybe that part is on chain, and maybe the compute's done on something like Akash, and maybe you have certain portions of the code that are stored on some websites. Like it's more of like a modular like kind of piece together.
That's where BitTensor is going, right? Really, that's one of the things I'm excited about. BitTensor is they're going to use Akash for pre-training and GPUs, and they're going to be and they're using a lot of other stuff to do this on-chain sort of like coordination for off-chain resources or like off like BitTensor resources, right? So it's very fascinating. I mean, and they also have like a model that's out kind of thing now, which I highly recommend. Go check it out. It's a very good chatbot, very, very promising. I think BitTensor is going to be a lot more relevant very, very soon with the progress they're making. And we have something in the works with them as well. So
what's the current long-term roadmap for Akash?
Well, so ultimately for us to be successful, we need to come to something called parity with the cloud, right? So there are two essential sort of like phases, pre-parity and post-parity. So pre-parity is where we are right now. We're powerful in certain ways like GPUs and censorship resistant and all these things cloud cannot offer, but we're not powerful with other aspects of the cloud, which is a lot more, right? Backend services, you have just orchestration, you have automation, you have observability, you have so many things cloud offers that Akash does not yet offer, right? So if you were to like go to a Walmart and be like, hey, move all your infrastructure to Akash, that's not something that they can do right now. So our first goal in the short term is to get to parity. Once we get to parity, we get to post parity, which I call innovation beyond imagination. You and I cannot sit here and imagine what kind of innovation will be, but what that will look like is, imagine having, so Amazon has about 30 regions, right now. Instead of 30 regions, you're going to have 10,000 regions, right? So what kind of latency you're going to get? That means latency is the distance it takes, or the time it takes to go from server to client, right? A packet. When you have low latency, like 10 milliseconds, what kind of applications are possible using 10 millisecond latency, right? You cannot fathom those applications. Those are like so crazy out there. The possibilities are limitless. That's the ultimate goal, right? Ultimate goal is to get beyond the cloud parity, go into the home. There's so much unused capacity in the home where you have my PlayStation, my PS2, my Xbox, which I use maybe once a year, is sitting on this massive compute capacity, GPUs. My Tesla that's running, not running in the night, is sitting and charging, it has an onboard data center. It has about 200 GPUs, right? You have so much compute out there that can be connected and really take AI to next level. I read a stat somewhere that said about 5% of global GDP will be spent on AI compute in the I think in 2030 or something. And it's believable the way AI is going, right? It's going to need a lot more chips, and we don't have capacity as humanity to produce a lot of chips. The only way we can achieve that level of usage is by looking inward, like what we have right now that's not being utilized. So the goal of Akash is to get there, and we're going to get there by solving for critical problems and getting adoption, and eventually becoming so good that we can actually go inside a house in terms of reliability.
When you were talking about like 10,000 regions versus 30 regions, do you mean like basically AWS has so many warehouses where they have all their servers, and because of that, there's like a latency between the time that a user's access, when they're trying to access it, there's always going to be this latency. Where with what what Akash is designing, you're going to be able to have thousands of all these basically hubs for compute that are going to be a lot quicker to access. Is that what you're saying?
Much faster performance. So for example, right now, so your human brain, right, in order for us to be cognitively continuous, in the sense like when you touch your phone, and if the response from that touch comes within 100 milliseconds, it feels continuous. 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second, right? So in order for your brain to feel continuous cognitively, it needs to come back with that time, and the latency between East Coast and West Coast is about 300 milliseconds. So if I have a server in West Coast and I'm accessing you in East Coast, it doesn't feel continuous. You click and you wait. It doesn't feel that it's responsive enough. So that's going to make you use the software less. And that makes a lot of applications impossible. You can't do cloud gaming, for example, with that level of latency, right? Because you're going to lose. Somebody's going to lose. The guy who has it faster. And there's a whole book called Flash Boys by, you should read that, by Michael Lewis. It's sort of like, it talks about how your high frequency trading happens on low latency lines because you need that speed. Because if you're faster than the guy. Anyway, so high latency is impossible to do a lot of things, including machine learning. So you want very low latency. And the way you lower the latency is by bringing the client and the server close. This physically, or improving the line to such high performance. If you look at how traders in Chicago were able to achieve a high latency to servers in CME traders or the commodities traders in Chicago to the servers in New Jersey, is by cutting through a mountain in a straight line. I don't know if you saw crazy stories, literally cut through a mountain, because even a bend in a mountain means bending the light will slow you down. So anyway, so it's physics. There's no way you can get around physics. So you reduce the amount of distance between the client and the server. And Akash essentially makes any computer a data center or any computer a provider, right? That's the whole goal of Akash. Right now, it's primarily using data centers. There are data centers everywhere. There are data centers on near cell phone towers. There are data centers, in inner cities. There are data centers everywhere, right? It's just that these data centers are not connected to the cloud. They're used for a special purpose by few companies. But if you connect all those data centers, you're going to get this network that's high performance, so high performance that you can do really good machine learning actually that are on distributed clusters, right? So that's why I say 10,000 regions means you can do a lot of things that you cannot do right now on the cloud.
So whole new use cases, whole new applications that are currently not able to be done because of the latency could be opened up as you get parity with something like AWS for something like Akash.
And that is what is going to get us into like this mode of like, hey, yeah, oh, by the way, only on Akash kind of mode, right? Like this is impossible in the cloud. I mean, right now it's only GPUs, but I want to see everything, like new kinds of applications that people haven't thought about that can only be possible on Akash, right? And we're going to get there using this post-parity world.
I mean, that gets me excited. I mean, pretty much a lot of the I feel like I know Akash really well, especially compared to maybe the average person. Like I spent a lot of time diving in. I've read your guys' all your documents. I've, tracked down as much information as I could. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I've learned already just from this podcast that I didn't know before. That's gotten me really excited about what you guys are building. I was going to ask, and we're going to wrap this up pretty quick. Currently, getting the AKT token is pretty difficult. Like, well, I mean, you either get on Kraken or you got to go on Osmosis. And most people struggle to go on Osmosis, even if you're like DeFi native or crypto native. And not everyone has access to Kraken. Is there any plans to launch on something like Coinbase or Binance, or have you guys talked about that?
I mean, obviously, I can't comment on exchange listings, right? It's like, right now it's on Kraken for US users. For non-US users, you have Crypto.com, you have Gate.io, you have KuCoin, you have several exchanges that are pretty good considered pretty mainstream, right? Akash is not listed on Binance, Coinbase, or OKEX yet, and so I don't have any specifics to share with your audience, but Akash has been around for 4 years, right? So I mean, I think it's mostly about like it's a matter of time, and people as Akash gets more prominence, and these listings are so weird that you never know what gets listed, what doesn't get listed, right? I wish it was more transparent, but it's not really. I mean, if you look at the whole process, right? Are there plans? Sure, it'd be nice for Akash to be on these exchanges. I think as Akash gets more users and more utility, it has to be in more exchanges. But is it a limiting factor right now? It's not, right? It's not sure, Kraken is great, actually. We had no idea Kraken was going to list. We just woke up one day and it was listed on Kraken. So who knows, we wake up one day and some of these good exchanges that feel like should support a decentralized machine learning will start listing. And some of the best ones like BitTensor as well, that I consider to be great. A lot of Cosmos projects are not listed. There's also an underlying reason for that. Like Cosmos doesn't have a central figurehead like Solana's and Ethereum's of the world that can coordinate a listing for the entire ecosystem, right? Like it's almost easier to be a Solana token or ERC20 token to be listed because you integrate with Solana once and you can pretty much put a line item in your database.
2 more questions. The first one is, what's coming up next for Akash, like immediately in the short term?
Oh, token incentives, right? That's it's going to put Akash at a different plane when it comes to supply, and that means a different level when it comes to demand, right? We already saw 250% growth month to month, cumulative monthly growth rate in the last 90 days since GPUs have launched, and we're making a lot more money than in terms of revenue on demand side fees than Helium's and LivePeers and every other DePIN network out there, right? In fact, Akash right now makes more in fees than Ripple and Dogecoin and Cardano, I think, as well. I don't remember. Anyway, but there are certain like top 25 tokens Akash in Polkadot. Actually, Akash makes more on-chain fees than Polkadot. That's right now, right? I think after token incentives, it's going to be exponential than that, right? So that's, for me, is distribution is the most important aspect. And the next 6 months, we have at least one different client that that'll be integrating with Akash. So we have a pipeline of demand side that'll make demand even more better. For us, it's completely about distribution, right? No new features in terms of what to do. Only feature we will focus on is features that get us more users and not other way around. We have done building now. Product is great. Product is usable. Those have some housekeeping stuff that we're working on, like making it a little more stable and making it a little better and all that stuff. But incentives are going to be the biggest sort of driver for growth for 2024.
If people want to stay up to date with Akash, they want to kind of stay up to date with what you're up to, what's the easiest way to do that?
Twitter is the best way to keep up to date with me. Greg Osuri is my handle, GregOsuri. And Akash Network Twitter is very active. AkashNet_ is the handle. Join our Telegram. Telegram is, Telegram. You have Telegram people. Discord, we have about 30,000 people in Discord. Discord or Akash Network, that's where if you're a developer, you get first-hand knowledge. It's a little more technical, Discord than others. But Twitter happens to be the most up-to-date real-time feed for both us and the company. And we don't do traditional stuff, like we do blogs here and there. I mean, we summarize what's happening every month. We don't do monthly updates. We stopped doing that. I think they're a waste of time. But we do like periodical updates to what's happening. Actually, if you come to our steering meetings happen every month. You can get like up-to-date information. And if you don't make to one of the meetings, they are recorded on chain and transcribed and summarized using AI. So you can get to see summary points, action items. So you don't have to read through the whole transcript and just spend.
And where do you access that?
GitHub. GitHub.com/Akash Network is our network, and you have a community repo there. You should be able to see all the meeting notes in the community repo. Find the SIG steering committee. It's a little hard to navigate, but going to make that easier. Like there's a lot of content on GitHub, right? If you really look for stuff, but I think steering committee meetings are amazing way to like really get to know what's happening, because we summarize everything that's happening in the month, and we also fund a lot of projects in the steering committee. I mean, the committee is not an approval board; it's just a recommendation board. So it'll recommend whether something to be funded or not. By the way, if you're interested in building any open source stuff that's public goods, that's going to help crypto in the broader scheme, you could use Akash. May not use Akash. Come, please apply for a grant. So we have lots of grants. Only open source stuff. We don't fund anything closed. So only open source public goods we fund. There's a lot of stuff happening there as well.
And one question I just have been asking everyone is, and you can make this quick, when do you see the next bull run starting? Just like in your opinion, it has nothing to do with Akash. Just
Okay, so I'm not a financial analyst. This is not financial advice, so that's precursor. I'm an engineer. So I'm really bad at predicting these things, but so we are currently in the pre-gaming of a bull run, right? We're not there yet. From my experience in the past, it was a series of narratives rooted in fundamentals, right? So last time was DeFi, really, the DeFi summer, 2019. It was exciting. It was like a lot of degeneracy, a lot of things people are doing, and they know what they're doing if they're involved. So more people want to know what they're doing, and that's how they get more people involved. So you got to look for patterns. You got to look for things that people are using. People are excited about it, maybe through making money or through playing games or whatever. And more people want to know what these people are doing. That's how they come. That's when your uncles will start asking you about DeFi. I swear to God, like last bull run, I had professional athletes, like pro ballers, basketball ballers, asking for how to do like osmosis yields, So that is like an indication of a bull run, right? But almost all the time it's rooted in like, hey, teach me something that's not very common to the public, but you guys are doing a bunch of crazy stuff. I want in, right? Whenever you see that, that's when the beginning of the bull run, right? We're starting to see like that, right? So on Akash, we saw mining opportunities. Apparently, people are making a lot of money in mining on Akash that I didn't know. Even I don't know how to do that on Akash, to be honest with you, because I see people on Twitter saying how they use, and there's this like, they keep checking Akash every 2 or 3 times, say, day to get the right type of box so they can make money mining. So there's that degeneracy play. So obviously people are arbitraging, right? So now if I know how to do that, I will go do it. I just don't know what to tweak, on Akash. And we're seeing similar games that are happening right now. So you need people need something to get excited about, right? We're seeing this one thing about NFTs. I'm not a big fan in general of like the whole space, but there's certain aspects of NFTs I think that are very attractive. And then you need something on top of that, you need some gambling, right? A lot of crypto is just gambling. As much as I hate to say it, because a lot of degeneracy that happens here, there's fundamentals and there's gamblers that come. Gamblers always convert something to games so that could be attractive to a lot of people, right? So I think a Bitcoin ETF is going to be a big trigger for gamblers to come, because that will increase the demand for Bitcoin. That'll increase the demand for the price of Bitcoin. That's not a secret. And then you need the cost of money to come down, right? So cost of money is the Fed pivoting to lowering interest rates, right? So I think whenever these sort of like three things come together, you need trigger, you need cost of money to go down, and you need these degeneracy patterns to come up. Whenever those three there comes a bull market. So that's my thesis, right? Now, it's starting to happen a little bit. The degeneracy in the gambling is back. And when the Fed pivots and ETF approves, I think that's going to be the beginning of the bull market. I don't know the timing, hard to say, but be patient, I guess, just focus on what's important, which is fundamentals, right? Build something people want, people use. Ideally, if you're a project, you want to serve the crypto audience, right? So for Akash, we are seeing quite a lot of NFTs that are like being minted with Stable Diffusion on Akash. So you have that sort of like the crypto aspect of people making money on Akash, which is important, right, for protocols to succeed. So I think we're going to see quite a lot of like when we turn on incentives, people making money by coming to crypto to put their boxes. I think it's a great way to like get people excited. But that excitement should be rooted in actual utility, not just gambling, right? Don't just do another DeFi project with like 3,000% yield and like, then you don't have foundation to back that up. So if you have something real, like a GPU, a real need, adding some degeneracy on the real need actually can result in incredible outcomes, right? So that's why I'm excited. Like, hey, we're in like good sort of like mode now. We're going to get a lot of people excited, and a lot of people are going to make money providing compute, and that is going to trickle down to other people.
Well, Greg, this has been amazing. Like I said, I started out pretty bullish on Akash before this, and it's been one of my favorite projects during, crypto winter. But I feel like my bullishness for Akash, after hearing what you've said and after actually hearing you talk about it, has gone up tenfold. From hearing the way that you've explained the future of Akash potentially playing out, but more so just kind of hearing you go into the details of things that I previously just wasn't aware of, because I'm not as involved day to day with Akash as obviously as you are, and nobody really is, right? Except for people that are. Nobody's going to be as involved as the people that are working in it day in and day out. So this has been great, Greg. It's been awesome to have you. And thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for having me.